Hi, once again, everybody. We are locked and loaded to bring you another week of Gun on One. Well, for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's one down, 16 to go. And the most important thing is they start the 2024 season with the all-important W. I'm Derrick Gunn, and joining me today is a man who's all over the place. He is a colleague, and most importantly, he is a friend. You can see him on the Seth Joyner Show. You can hear him and see him on the Seth Joyner podcast. He is also the co-host with myself and Mark Farzetta on the Bet Parks pre- and post-game shows presented by Pondla Hockey at Parks Casino. The one and only Seth Joyner. Everybody knows him. They love him. How you doing, my brother?
G, I'm good, man. I'm good. Trying to get rested up for Monday night.
One thing I wanted to ask you for a long time is, because I hear you on radio, I see you on TV, I see you all over the place. Do you ever get tired of talking football?
No.
No?
I mean, listen, sorry about that. I'm trying to get my look together here.
That's all right.
You know, when you're on camera, everything is opposite.
You look marvelous, darling.
No. I mean, football is my passion. I can talk about football every day, any day, all day, 24/7. You know, sometimes people are like, man, I really don't want to. I'm like, listen, this is what I do, So if you want to talk it, let's talk it.
Mm. Hey, I want to start with the defense because, the one thing we've criticized the Eagles for years is the absence of stellar linebacking play.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were talking about this with Mark Farzetta on the postgame show. The Eagles have a linebacker, Zack Baun. I mean, who could have figured it out? We thought it was just going to be another plug-and-play type guy. This dude asserted himself right from the jump, Seth.
D, I tell you, during training camp, the whole offseason, he was penciled in as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And like, who is Zack Baun? That you just gave this guy the job. And, they would rave reviews all through training camp and whatnot. And I'm like, I looked him up. I'm like, he was a reserve for the Saints last year, a situational player, a role player. And I get it. The Saints got some pretty darn good linebackers, DeMario, and Anzalone before he moved on. They had some really good linebackers there. But I was absolutely blown away by what I saw on the field. By the way that this kid plays. I mean, listen, he can do it all, man. I mean, he can play on the ball, he can play off the ball, he can rush the passer. He had only 2 sacks that the Eagles put up last week. If he can maintain this, the Eagles certainly have something. And, how he's going to be in a position sooner or later where a potential long-term signing is something that he'd probably want to get locked in, because you don't want to let this guy, hit the free agency market if he continues to play like this next year and we lose him. I think that the Eagles have finally learned that the linebacker position is an important position.
Yeah.
And I may be a little biased in my opinion and my analysis of it because I think that every great defense has to have great linebackers. And I think you can go back and you can historically research that and find that to be true. And it's especially true in today's NFL because you no longer have a 3-4 defense where you got 4 linebackers on the field, or a 4-3 defense where you got 3 linebackers on the field. Mm-hmm. Personnel has dictated to today's NFL that you primarily are going to play a 2 linebacker set, depending on the formation that you're in. The other linebacker position has been relegated to the slot to take care of the third wide receiver, to take that mismatch away. So with only 2 on the field, you got to have some guys that can actually play at that position. It's important. It's imperative. And it took the Eagles a long time to really understand that. They've been mixing and matching, bringing in, linebacker journeymen, bringing in, special teams players and trying to convert them and trying to convert safeties to linebackers, all of these things, all of these years. And when I look at how he's done this offseason, he's brought in a group of linebackers. They drafted a linebacker, in the 3rd round. I forget what round they drafted Trotter in. but they drafted Nakobe Dean 2 years ago in the 3rd round. You know, they bring in, you know, Devin White. We're still, you know, yet to find out, you know, what that's all about. But anytime at any position, I think that you can create competition, then you're going to get the best of what you have.
Right.
Everybody's vying for playing time. And in today's NFL, it's a lot different than, you know, when I played, I didn't come off the field. You know, I was the 3rd down linebacker, you know, in nickel. Byron and I stayed on the field. In dime, I was the only linebacker on the field, and I actually called the defenses, you know, in that scenario. But guys are vying for the ability to secure playing time. And Vic Fangio has come out and said, hey, you know, I don't want to rotate my linebackers. I want 2 guys to be the starter. I want 2 guys to take the bull by the horn and say, hey, I'm the starter. We're the 2 starters at linebacker. Now, when you hear that, if competition doesn't swell up inside you, then you're in the wrong, you know, you're in the wrong business. You need to go find something else to do. So now the Eagles got 4 or 5 linebackers that are competing like crazy, and you're going to get the cream of the crop. The cream will rise to the top. You're going to get the best of the best out of those 4 or 5 guys. And they know that they're going to have to maintain that level of play throughout the year because you got guys that's chomping at the bit. You got guys that are on your heels trying to get some of that playing time.
You brought up Nakobe Dean, and I think I'm going to have to eat a little crow right now because I said he was too light to bang in the middle of that defense. But Nakobe had a heck of a game. I know it's a 1-game sample, but Nakobe held his own and made his presence known in that game against the Packers.
I'm going to say this, D, because I'm going to reserve how I evaluate Nakobe for the first week. He had some really good plays. He looked good. He was physical. That hit that he made, you know, on that potential screenplay was outstanding. You know, he really could have done himself a heck of a lot of good if he could have held on that ball and turned it into a pick 6. So it seems like, you know, he's finding his footing. But I'm going to say the most important thing about Nakobe Dean is that he got through a full game healthy. You know, now let's see whether he can stack games, you know, and continue to play at the level that he's played. You know, anytime the Packers ran up 163 yards on the Eagles at 7.8 yards per carry. You know, that's not going to fly. No. And when you see a team be able to run the football like that, that is an indictment, you know, not only on the front, but also the linebackers, because the linebackers play an intricate role in being able to control the run. So that tells me that the linebackers in spots weren't getting to where they need to get to, didn't play that well against the run. But so it was spotty, but I'm not going to hold that against them. It's week 1. You know, let's see how this thing continues to progress, how they both continue to progress. But, you know, I'm really not that concerned with how well Nakobe played. We know the potential is there.
Right.
What I'm most concerned with is, can he stay healthy? You know, can he stay healthy enough to stay on the field and then be productive? Because the health is the main thing with him after his first 2 years being injured, you know, and his development being arrested because he couldn't stay healthy and stay on the field long enough for us to get a real understanding of how good he could be.
What are we to make of the Devin White situation? We all had him penciled in as a starter, and he doesn't make the trip to Brazil. He's not starting. Eagles paid him a decent penny to come in here and to be their linebacker. Now, so far, he's saying all the right things, but you know the competitive juices are not sitting well with him in the fact that he's watching and not playing right now.
Well, you know, I got some issues, you know, with the whole Devin White thing.
Yeah,
I think everybody knows and everybody believes that the Eagles want Nakobe Dean to be a player. Because when teams draft a player, the last thing they want to have to go through is the critique and the criticism of, you know, you drafted this linebacker in the 3rd round and he didn't work out. He's a bust. No organization wants to go through that. The organization, especially those picks somewhere between number 1 and number 4, they want those guys to pan out and be starters because it makes them look good. It makes them look smart. You know, when a guy doesn't pan out, it makes them look inept at what they're doing, like as if, you know, they made a pick and didn't know, and they missed something, you know. So they want him to play. But the whole Devin White thing is somewhat, you know, of an enigma to me because, you know, week 1, all of a sudden he comes up, you know, with an ankle injury at the end of the week. Nakobe Dean's going to replace him as a starter.
Yep.
Then they announced he's not even going to make the trip. There are plenty of guys who were injured that still made the trip. Why didn't Devin White make the trip? Okay. Then it starts to leak out that, oh, you know, Nakobe actually played better than him during training camp and actually beat him out for the starting job. Well, if that was the case, why weren't we hearing that all through training camp? 1. 2, why was Devin White running first team all training camp? And we got down to the last week before the first game of the season, and now all of a sudden the reports come out that Devin was beat out by Nakobe. Something ain't right here, man. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but something ain't right, and it's got to play out because, you know, the fact that the Eagles put him on the roster, you know, on the 53-man roster, as a veteran, that now means that they are on the hook for that contract.
That's right.
Now they could have cut him and then brought him back, but if you cut him, now you run the risk that somebody else may grab him and you may not get him back. But they could have cut him, which would have been a non-guarantee to the rest of his contract for the rest of the year. So they could have just brought him back and been week to week if they decided to move on from him at another time. But by putting him on the 53-man roster, you pretty much guaranteed his salary for the year. And now all this other stuff comes out. Something ain't right. There's something fishy. There's something else going on that they ain't telling us. And I'm curious to watch and see how all of this plays out because it's got to play out, you know, in the next couple of weeks. He's either going to get on the field and play and somebody was lying, or Nakobe just beat him out and the Eagles are just using him as an insurance policy. And he's a little upset about it. And you can't have a guy in that locker room that's not a team guy that will accept being the second team guy. At some point, something's got to give.
You and I are thinking the same way. Now, I want to preface my next question by saying I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because, again, it's only one game into the season. But, Seth, I'm a little uneasy with this so-called pass rush of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you know, Brandon Graham, 36 years old, playing more snaps than Bryce Huff, who you gave $51 million to. Josh Sweat, I mean, what are we to make of this pass rush or lack thereof? And again, I don't want people saying, oh, D Gunn's being negative. No, I'm not. I'm just saying I'm looking at what I'm seeing so far. And this was an issue we discussed going into the season about who was going to be the premier pass rusher for this defense.
Well, you don't have to be, but I'll take it. I'll do it. You know, it's an issue. You know, it's an issue. The Eagles 2 years ago broke our record of 68 sacks in the game, with 70 during the regular season. It came back last year, and, you know, everybody expected for those numbers to somewhat be similar. But I said, you know, listen, those types of numbers are anomalies.
Right.
You just, you know, we did it one time, you know, and we had great pass rushes all the way across the board. Now, the issue is, you know, trying to replicate that on a year-to-year basis is like Nick Foles throwing 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. You know, that's going to happen one time in a quarterback's career. The game is just too hard, and players are too good for those numbers to pop up like that all the time. Those are anomalies. Fast forward to this year, and, you know, for whatever reason, you know, well, we know the reason the Eagles just didn't want to pay it. I don't know what the number was. I don't know whether it was 30 million. I've heard 30 million. I heard 28 million. I heard 25. But Hassan Reddick was, you know, scheduled to make $14 million this year, and pretty much told the Eagles he wasn't playing for that amount of money. So the Eagles made the decision to move on, bring in a younger Bryce Huff, paid him a 3-year, $51 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, now we got Bryce Huff, a guy who only played 40% of the snaps, up in New York last year, had 11 sacks. He's 5 years younger than Hassan Reddick, but he's an unproven commodity. Nolan Smith is an unproven commodity. And the fact that, we got nothing out of those two guys whatsoever, at least Josh Sweat got close a couple of times. I think Nolan Smith may have had one hurt, but I was talking about it on WIP this morning, and they were like, what did you see? I'm like, great players. I found myself, each series looking to see if Josh Huff or Nolan Smith was in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Great players, you don't have to look for them.
Mm.
They just pop up on film because they're doing something. So they're very visual. You don't have to look for the number. You don't have to look for the name on the back. You don't have to look for the body type. You don't have to look for any of that kind of stuff. They're just out there. Like, we didn't have to look for Zack Baun. We saw Zack Baun. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
We saw him play. We saw him making plays. We saw him being productive. But when you got to look for a player, that's problematic.
Yeah.
That's extremely problematic.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big problem going forward, because all of these things kind of play hand in hand. If the Eagles can't control the run game, it's going to make it even that much more difficult in the pass game, because, you always got to honor play action pass, which makes pass rushers a step and a half step slower than they really need to be, which gives that quarterback, an extra second to 2 seconds to actually read what's going on and get the fast ball, get the quick routes out of his hands. Mm-hmm. So it's all tied together, man. It really is. Me personally, I don't know, what the deal was between the Eagles and Hassan. I know he turned 30 this year. But 30 in the NFL damn near is the new 25. The way you're minimizing the amount of plays that they're playing, the training regimens, nutrition, and the way these guys take care of their bodies is so different that you can probably get 32 and productive out of most of these guys. So if you're gonna give Bryce Huff, and I get it, he's 5 years younger. If you're gonna give him a 3-year deal, for $51 million, you mean to tell me that you couldn't have kicked, unless the number was exorbitant, unless he was trying to get JJ Watt money or Myles Garrett money, then I get it, I understand. But I've always believed that if the Eagles could have brought him up to 21, 22 million, somewhere in there,
right,
that he would have been happy with that number. But 14 million, he outplayed that contract. He outplayed that contract the first year, and it probably warranted them extending it. And I think if you could have added a year to it,
right,
then you still would have been within the parameters of the 51 that you gave, to Bryce Huff.
Yeah.
And now you got a proven commodity, and now with Zack Baun being able to, step out of that 4-2 front and be able to get up on the end of the line, now you don't have to drop Hassan no more. You can just turn him loose and let him go, because Zack Baun can be the drop guy, in your zone coverage out of your 5-man front.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I know and what I've heard from the inside. Hassan wanted 25 a year. The Eagles offered 17, and he wasn't going to play for 17, obviously, if he was already making 14. And for people out there to keep saying, we need to go out and get Hassan Reddick, I'm here to tell you right now, as we sit here today, the Eagles have no interest in bringing Hassan Reddick back. So we got to move on, and we basically have to look at what we have and go with what we have.
Let me say this, D-Gun.
Yeah.
If we get to week 4 and we ain't got no damn sacks by our guys on the outside, that may change real quick.
I agree.
Real quick. Listen, I get it. They made their decision.
Right.
And, sometimes the Eagles can be a little egotistical in the way that they approach things.
Yeah.
But if we get to week 4 and our defensive end / edge rushers ain't got no damn sacks, okay, they might need to give some serious consideration, to giving the Jets their damn 3 back. And maybe something else. Go getting Hassan and give him and tell him, hey, listen, we'll bring you up to 2022. Okay, we can't give you 25, but we'll give you 2022. We'll give you a 2-year extension, 22, 21 this year, 22 next year. Okay. And I guarantee you he'd be pleased as punch to take that money and come on in.
Hey, no disrespect to the linebacking play, because I have the utmost respect for linebacking play in general, especially you, getting to know you through the years and calling you a good friend. But ever since I was a young kid, and people will always ask me, what's your favorite position of football? I always say the running back position. I have to go to the running back. And that young man, Saquon Barkley, put on a season-opening show, man, over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Seth, break him down and what you saw from him behind one of the best offensive lines in the National Football League.
Well, listen, I think that we already knew what the potential was.
Absolutely.
The last 2 years he's been plagued by injuries, probably because, he's playing behind a line that's not giving him much, and he's the focal point in the entire offense.
Right.
Now you got him in an offense where he doesn't have to be the focal point. He's playing against the either first or second best offensive line, in the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
He got to just feel like, a kid that woke up on Saturday morning in Disneyland, So not only is he motivated, he's talented as heck. He's probably in the top 2 or 3 running backs, in the National Football League.
Right.
But you take that and a motivation to prove everybody wrong, that he can stay healthy, but also to prove the New York Jets wrong, the New York Giants wrong, and how they handled the situation. They made it very public, which I think was a big mistake when you had, the owner and the GM and the head coach and everybody sitting in this meeting, and they put it out there for everybody to see the conversation that went on as to why they should let Saquon Barkley test the market. They had to know the minute they let him test the market that there was no way in hell he was coming back. Even if he had to take less money than what they were offering, he wasn't coming back because he could not fulfill his true potential in New York. And you look at how they got dismantled last week. That proves that, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, they are just not moving in the proper direction. I think Daniel Jones was sacked another 5 times. What do you got playing running back that's going to do for you what Saquon was doing? Now, so let me stop talking about the Giants and all that other stuff, and let's put the focus back on Saquon, okay? The guy's a generational running back. Yeah. And when I say a generational running back, I'm talking about a guy, I'm not talking about just the great runners in the National Football League, but I'm talking about the guys that can run, that can catch the ball out of the backfield, then is willing to block and can block. And he's shown that he can do all of those in the first game. Now, the Eagles don't want to be a running team. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
They want to throw the football, and that's understandable. But there's a method to getting to where you want to go, and instead of just going where you want to go because you think that that's where you need to be.
Right.
Okay. And I say that to say that Saquon Barkley had 24 carries for 109 yards rushing. Okay. 4-point-something yards per carry and 2 rushing touchdowns. You can't just gloss over that because, and granted, most of his yards rushing came in the second half, but that kind of set the stage for the offense and put the defense in a situation where they had to be cognizant of the fact that he might touch the ball. Mm-hmm. Now, when you do that, that's going to open everything up for Jalen. It's going to open everything up in the passing game. And guess what? During the times, where they're focusing on him and he leaks out and we've got coverage advantage because you've had to focus on him in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
He's still a weapon coming out of the backfield. There's not a running back in the National Football League that's going to cover him man to man. So that means you're going to have to put assets on him like safeties. That makes you, less strong on the back end as far as everybody else is concerned, But he's the linchpin, in my opinion, as far as this offense is concerned. Mm-hmm. And for all those people who believe that, the NFL is a passing league, it may truly be a passing league. But if you look at the Detroit Lions, what did they do?
That's right.
They won in overtime running the football. They won that football game because they controlled the line of scrimmage and they ran the football with Montgomery and Gibbs.
Yep.
Okay? You look at the San Francisco 49ers game. Christian McCaffrey's out. They got this new kid that steps in, 147 yards. He just running.
Where did they get this kid from?
I mean, just running roughshod all over one of the best defenses in the National Football League. Okay, so don't tell me that the run game is dead. That you win football games by throwing the ball all over the map. You win football games by running the football. The running of the football opens up everything else in your offense. Now you can have everything else that you want. Brock Purdy is not succeeding without play action pass. That's right. What he needs to be successful. And he's a first read quarterback. If you can take that first read away and make him go to the second read, or you can get pressure on him, then you can have success. But when you're running the football, trust me, I know as a former defensive player, when a team is running the football on you and you can't do nothing about it, it is the most demoralizing thing in the world. Because if you're passing the ball, the pass rush can get to you every once in a while. The coverage can be good every once in a while. A quarterback may be inaccurate every once in a while. But when they're running the ball and you can't do anything about it, it's demoralizing, because you have to respect every single time that quarterback sticks that ball out. You got to respect the fact that, man, they gashing us 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a clip.
And you look at Saquon, he has the body type that can easily sustain 25, 28 touches a game. Not carries, touches a game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think he had 2 catches and 24 carries.
Right.
And I think that the 24 carry number probably was a little higher because, that last drive that the Eagles had that ended up in a field goal, I think it was a 15-play drive. Mm-hmm. They were in their 4-minute offense. And within the 4-minute offense, you're going to get a lot more carries. I think that data analytically, the Eagles truly believe that once a running back hits that 16 to 18 carry mark, that the probability of injuries go up exponentially. So you've seen probably over the last 5 years, going back to Miles Sanders, where once a guy hits that 16 to 18 carry mark, they try to bring in the other guy because they don't want to get him injured. And I don't think that went anywhere, but they were just forced, if you will, because of how well he was playing, to leave him in there and allow him to get those extra 6 or 7 carries that they traditionally wouldn't give him, or running back at that position.
Well, that leads us to probably the biggest topic of discussion after week 1, the quarterback play. Yep, Jalen Hurts. And on the positive side, he threw for 278 yards, made 2 beautiful touchdown throws to AJ and to Saquon. But Seth, he threw officially 2 picks, could have thrown 4 picks. And people are nervous about Jalen Hurts moving forward as this season unfolds. And where do you stand on him?
Listen, I'm not nervous, because I'm going to put it to you this way.
Yeah.
I get Philadelphia.
Okay.
The negativity has much more star power than the positivity. And I get it. When you have a year like he had last year, 15 interceptions, 6 lost fumbles, and then you start the year off and you go interception, fumble the first two possessions of the game, I get the angst and some of the decisions that he made that didn't turn into turnovers because the Packers DBs just dropped balls. Yeah. I get the angst. Okay. So let's deal with that. That's a real situation. I think that, Jalen's got to play better. I think Jalen knows he's got to play better and make better decisions. But I also believe, D. Gunn, and this is not in defense of Jalen. Right. It's just an adjunct to the fact of how we're talking about Jalen. Right. I think sometimes that the offensive coordinator who's still getting to know Jalen, and Nick Sirianni who knows Jalen, they got to come to the realization that Jalen is the type of player who believes that every single play can potentially work. Mm-hmm. That there's a way to make it a force fitted every single time. And he's not going to give up until there's absolutely nothing left. Okay. It's almost like that. He plays that hero mentality, that hero type ball sometimes. And particularly, his judgment gets clouded in 3rd and long situations where he's trying to force a first down in 3rd and long. I think if you look at the percentages, I don't know it off the top of my head,
Right.
But the percentages of converting third and longs has got to be down in the low teens or below 10%. And they've got to have that conversation with him, but they also got to protect him, D. Okay. So the first interception was 3rd and 15. He threw that ball across the middle, interception.
Yeah.
You don't need to be throwing that pass. Like most teams in 3rd and 15, they're either going to run a screen or a draw and punt the ball and let the defense do its job. Sometimes you got to save players with a hero mentality from themselves via play calling. That's not absolving him, because he's got to be smarter and understand that you can't force that ball there. Okay. You can't force that ball to A.J. Brown in the end zone when you know that we're in field goal range, and a field goal means an 8-point lead. Okay. You can't do that. And I'm not absolving him from that, nor will I absolve him from that. But I won't absolve him, and nor will I condemn him.
Right.
For the good play that he had. You got to talk about that as well.
Yes.
He made some really good throws. Like you said, 278 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 20 of 34. Okay. We got to focus on the good as well as we focus on the bad, and hope that the good diminishes or goes away, and the bad rather, and the good just continues to increase as time goes on. And that's a product of him continuing to learn. And everybody is like, well, he should have learned. He turned the ball over 15 times through the air last year. Yeah, he should learn. But that hero's mentality and a never say die mentality, and some players never die. It's also the situation where, Kellen Moore, understanding Jalen and his mindset, says, okay, we're not even going to put him in a situation where he can try to play hero ball. We're going to hand this ball off, or we're going to run a screen, and if we get it, good. If we don't, we're going to punt it and rely on the defense to do what they do.
I do believe the defense will be better in December than it is now. But looking at the personnel overall with the defense, it's not going to change much. How he might tweak something here and there, as he does every year. You get to week 4, week 5, week 6. He might tweak something, but the personnel is going to be what it is. I believe this offense, Seth, is going to have to carry this defense. And by carrying it, I mean they're going to have to score 30 points a game for success in 2024.
D, they can, though.
I know.
There's no reason in the world, if they do things the right way, there's no reason in the world why this team can't average 30-plus points a game. No reason. They have too much talent, too much ability. They've got a superstar in waiting in Dallas Goedert, who still is underutilized. So if you add him to the mix with Devontae, AJ, Jahan Dotson, I think he got maybe 1 target all game, if that. When Jalen gets to the place where he realizes that, AJ and Devontae aren't the only weapons that he has, and that if he can use all of these other weapons at his disposal, and I should add Saquon to that list, that those 3 aren't the only weapons that he has, he's going to become even greater. I was watching a clip yesterday on social media where on that play where he almost threw the interception on the sideline for the pick 6. So they had 3 receivers to that side, into the boundary. So the spacing on that side wasn't really all that good. And then I watched Jalen's eyes. He took the snap and he looked left to that side the entire time, because his 2 top guys were over there on that side. So my thing is, okay, the minute that you saw that there was nothing there, come back to the other side. Because you got Saquon one-on-one against a linebacker out here in the flat. That's your out. Okay. If that out ain't there, you can take off. If you don't feel that you can get out of the pocket, throw the damn ball away. Let's take the field goal. It's just those types of things, that we need to see him progress at. And I know he's going to see it, and I know he's going to understand it, in film study. And it's up to Kellen Moore to impress upon him more and more and more that these are your options. See, for me, every quarterback, in order to be an efficient quarterback, he talked about his growth and being involved in the protection calls and all those kind of things. and I get it. Every year it's a different system. It's a different offensive coordinator for him. But he's got to study to the point where he can close his eyes and tell you where every offensive player on the field is in every passing route. Okay. And if he needs to, go to a full field read, by the time he gets back over here, there's not a whole lot of trying to figure out where everybody is. He knows where they are. That's a part of his growth as well.
Yep.
When I see him set up in the pocket and look into the short side of the field and never get back to the wide side, that's a problem, man. That's a problem because his out was on the other side. So people keep talking about, well, he's missing wide open receivers, but you got to understand his progression is always taking him either left to right or right to left.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the pass rush or the situation dictates that he's not going to get all the way to the other side. But on that particular play, he had more than enough time to make a decision to either come back to the other side, take off, or throw it away. The protection was outstanding on that play. There was no reason for him to even try to chance that ball.
Well, I can't wait to see what Jalen Hurts looks like Monday night against the Atlanta Falcons. My man, I've taken up more than enough of your time. I'm going to let you breathe right now. And, of course, we will get together Monday night on our show. He is the one and only Seth Joyner. And, again, the man's all over the planet. Catch him on the Seth Joyner Show, the Seth Joyner Podcast. And, of course, he is the co-host of the Bet Parks pre- and post-game shows presented by Podla Hockey at Parks Casino. Seth, as always, thank you for giving me a few minutes, my brother.
You got it anytime, D. Anything for you, brother.
All right, brother. That's going to wrap up another edition of Gun on One. I'm Derrick Gunn. Until next week after the Falcons game, stay blessed. Have a great week, everybody.